There's a moment, right between exhaustion and alertness, where your brain feels like it's glitching. You know you're awake, but something inside you feels off, as if your emotions are too loud and your thoughts are too quiet. That's the moment sleep deprivation begins rewriting your brain without your permission. And today, I want to take you into that world and show you what's really happening beneath the surface, and how you can take back control. By the end of this video, you'll not only understand the neuroscience of sleep loss, but you'll see your exhaustion in a completely different way. Not as a failure, but as your brain's cry for protection. It usually starts innocently. A few late nights, a bit too much on your plate, and a quiet reassurance to yourself. I'll catch up this weekend. But there's someone I want you to meet. Someone whose story might feel uncomfortably familiar. Imagine her, sitting on the edge of her bed at 2:17 a.m., the room dimly lit by her phone screen. She's replaying the day over and over, heart thudding harder than it should for this hour. She's tired, desperately tired, but her mind is sprinting like it's preparing for danger. Her thoughts are scattered, her patience evaporated, and even the simplest decisions feel like dragging heavy furniture across a room. What she doesn't know is that while she's lying awake, her brain chemistry is quietly shifting, recalibrating itself in ways designed to keep her alive but not necessarily keep her well. And here's where psychology comes in. When your brain doesn't get enough sleep, one of the first chemicals to change is cortisol, your stress hormone. After a poor night of sleep, cortisol doesn't just rise. It surges. That surge makes your brain operate as if the world is a little more dangerous than it actually is. Your amygdala, the emotional alarm center, becomes hyperreactive. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational decision maker, becomes sluggish. So, you wake up already behind emotionally, even before your day begins. You're more sensitive, more irritable, more prone to overwhelm. That's not a weakness. That's biology. At the same time, your dopamine system, the one responsible for motivation and interest, starts misfiring. Lack of sleep disrupts dopamine receptors, making everyday tasks feel heavier, less rewarding. This is why you can feel physically awake but mentally absent, or why you crave stimulation, sugar, caffeine, something to push you through the fog. And perhaps most importantly, the brain's glymphatic system, its natural cleaning cycle, gets interrupted. It's like skipping the nightly reset your brain depends on to remove waste proteins. Over time, this leads to inflammation, memory problems, and difficulties regulating mood. Sleep is not simply rest. It is neurological maintenance. But let's go deeper, emotionally deeper, because science explains the mechanics, but it doesn't explain the lived experience. That feeling of drifting through your own life half present. Imagine yourself walking through a day while your brain is running on 60% power. You wake up already overwhelmed. Your emotions feel closer to the surface, as if there's no buffer between what you experience and how deeply it hits you. Someone sends a short text, and your mind interprets it as anger. Someone looks away mid-conversation, and you think you said something wrong. Small frustrations feel bigger. Small disappointments feel heavier. This isn't because you've become more sensitive. It's because your brain's emotional volume knob is being controlled by chemistry, not intention. Lack of sleep weakens the communication between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, the circuit responsible for emotional regulation. So instead of filtering stress, you absorb it. Instead of assessing danger, you overestimate it. Instead of brushing off a mistake, you dwell on it. And then comes the part that feels the most frustrating: the loss of insight. When you're sleep deprived, your brain struggles to recognize its own impairment. You tell yourself you're okay. You push harder. You keep functioning. You keep pretending. But all the while, your internal world is shifting in ways you don't see, making you more impulsive, more reactive, more disconnected from yourself. And there's something else, something we don't talk about enough. Sleep loss doesn't just change how you think. It changes how you interpret who you are. You start believing you're failing when you're simply exhausted. You think you're losing motivation when it's your dopamine system that's disrupted. You assume you're becoming emotional when your amygdala is firing without regulation. You think you're falling apart, but really, your brain is fighting to protect you with limited resources. This is why sleep deprivation can make anxiety feel sharper, depression feel heavier, and stress feel relentless. It lowers your emotional threshold and magnifies everything you fear. It becomes harder to trust yourself, harder to make decisions, harder to feel grounded. And this is the part that often becomes the turning point in someone's mental health journey. The realization that they're not broken, they're depleted. But here is the dramatic moment, the part most people never learn. After just one night of poor sleep, the brain's insulin sensitivity drops. This doesn't just affect metabolism, it affects mood regulation. When the brain becomes less responsive to insulin, it struggles to use glucose, its primary fuel, efficiently. So the emotional circuits that require the most energy start to underperform. This means your brain's ability to handle stress can literally drop overnight. And the amygdala, sensing vulnerability, shifts into high alert. This is your brain saying, "We're not safe. Stay awake. Be watchful. But you're not in danger. You're just tired." Your brain can't tell the difference. Now imagine our character again, the one in bed at 2:17 a.m. She thinks she's lying awake because she's stressed, because she's failing, because she can't cope. But the truth is simpler, softer. Her brain is protecting her the only way it knows how. It's holding on to wakefulness because it no longer trusts that sleep is safe. Her anxiety is a survival response. Her irritability is a neurochemical imbalance. Her emotional sensitivity is the result of disrupted communication between her brain regions. And when she wakes in the morning, overwhelmed, depleted, tearful, she thinks it's her fault. But it never was. Here's where the story shifts, because you need to know this part too. When you start restoring your sleep even slowly, the brain responds quickly. Inflammation decreases. Emotional stability returns. Dopamine receptors begin to recalibrate. The amygdala quiets. The prefrontal cortex regains control. The world begins to feel less threatening. You feel less fragile. You feel more like yourself again. Sleep doesn't just heal the body. It restores identity. It returns you to the version of yourself you forgot you could be. Grounded, clear, steady. And maybe this is where your story begins. Maybe you've been carrying exhaustion like a second skin. Maybe your emotions have felt too big lately. Maybe your confidence has been shaken by things you used to handle easily. Maybe you've been blaming yourself for symptoms your brain was never meant to manage without rest. If so, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not failing. You're not losing control. You're not weak. You're tired. And tired brains behave differently. They feel differently. They interpret the world differently. This awareness is not an excuse. It's an invitation. An invitation to respond to yourself with compassion instead of criticism. Curiosity instead of shame. Understanding instead of judgment. Because the moment you give your brain what it needs, even one night of deeper, uninterrupted sleep, the chemistry begins to shift. Your emotional world softens. Your thoughts slow down. Your resilience rises. And for the first time in a long time, you feel safe inside your own mind again. That is the power of sleep. That is the power of understanding your own biology. And that is the beginning of healing. So, as we close this story, I want you to carry one thing with you. Sleep is not laziness, luxury, or weakness. It is the foundation of emotional stability, mental clarity, and resilience. It is the quiet reset your brain desperately needs. And when you honor it, you don't just feel better. You become better. If this helps you understand yourself on a deeper level, stay close to this channel. We explore the mind-brain connection in a way that empowers you, not overwhelms you. And if you want more videos that blend science, psychology, and self-awareness the way we did today, make sure you subscribe and keep learning with me. Your brain will thank you for it.